A very, very good morning to you. My name is Howard Feldman, and I am the Head of Marketing and People at Synthesis Technologies. It is an absolute pleasure to be chatting to you today on the Synthesis podcast. My guest this morning is Mohammed Kaka, and he's been instrumental with the implementation of the Baraka Bank's strategy enhancements, operational, and with regard to their banking products. Mohammed, a very, very good morning to you, and welcome to the Synthesis podcast. Thanks for taking the time to chat to us this morning.
Good morning, Howard. Thank you very much for having me on as a guest. And it's a bit odd doing a podcast. So I'm going to say good morning to the listeners, but I know they probably will listen at any point in time.
Yeah. Look, I think there's a certain amount of leeway. So even if someone's watching it at 10 o'clock at night, they know that we recorded it in the morning. So it's all okay. Can we just talk about Baraka Bank? Because it doesn't function the way a conventional bank functions. It functions in terms of Sharia law, in terms of interest. It's a fascinating field. Can you give us a little bit of the context, a bit of the history, and how and the evolution of the bank?
Thanks, Howard. I think it's definitely a different story to what we know as conventional banking. Baraka, South Africa, celebrated our 30 years last year, and the bank actually started as an opposition to an article that was written many years back in the newspaper that said Sharia law was, or Sharia banking was not in public interest back in the old apartheid days. And our founding director, Advocate A.B. Mohammed, took it upon himself to challenge that within the laws at that point in time, and found himself sitting with a banking license. That license then gave him an opportunity to start this bank. And he was very fortunate to meet the founder of the group, the late Sheikh Saleh Kamel, who also passed on this year in the Ramadan period. And with the shared common interest in terms of finding a solution, a banking solution that was able to meet people's ethical requirements. And I think the idea behind that is that it's not usurious, it's driven by profit, it's driven by principles of creating wealth and sharing in that wealth. So our depositors share in the growth of the bank, and our clients that take funding from us have to be able to meet criteria in terms of asset-based, etc. So it's not just overdrafts, it's not pure loans, it's always asset-based, and it provides economic growth and real growth. Not to say that loans don't, but it provides a more sustainable approach. And that's why when we look back at the various financial crises, especially the one that happened in 2008, we found that Islamic banks were able to be much more robust because of their intrinsic structure. There's wealth creation that must be behind those transactions and not just profiteering from that aspect. So the bank established itself in 1989. We're a very small bank. We understand our limitations. And through the history of the bank, the approach was always one of providing a solution between those that wanted to earn a return on their funds and those that were looking at financing on a Sharia compliant basis. Over that period of 30 years, and possibly the first 20 of them, we involved with many traders and clients that would be involved in importing cross-border transactions. And that was always channeled through a partnership relationship that we had with many of the sponsoring banks during that 20-year period. But in 2012, we were fortunate to be given our own full foreign exchange license. And that sort of created the opportunity for the bank to grow, to transition from being a very small boutique finance and deposit house to being a little bit more of a commercial bank. and being able to better service its customers that were involved in that and were looking for that particular type of services. The bank itself, with the license, saw tremendous growth. And with growth came the need for us to modernize our systems to better implement stronger reporting. A very strong culture of reporting exists in the organization, and we always looked to solutions that would enhance that and complement our reporting culture. And that's where Synthesis came in.
Mm-hmm. So very, very interesting. What's fascinating to me is that the approach is completely unique in terms of conventional banking. It's not unique in terms of following Islamic law. This is part and parcel of the way finance is implemented. But in fact, what it does is it requires you really to know your clients a lot better, and it requires your clients to understand and have a very different type of relationship. Are you seeing a growth in the non-Muslim sector as well? Because obviously this provides a great opportunity for people that want to be compliant in terms of Islamic law. But I would imagine that it would have some kind of appeal to non-Muslims as well because of the sort of hands-on different type of approach.
So Howard, you raised two very important aspects. I think we all know banks spend huge amounts of money in terms of KYC and really knowing your client. But as you correctly pointed out, when one establishes that type of relationship, not merely as a funder or a loan, but more as an asset and based on asset transactions, etc., it involves a lot more knowing your client, so to say. So we have very strong relationships with our clients.
In the real sense of the word, actually. Actually, in the real sense, not from just a checking the box sort of thing. You actually do have to know the client.
You have to know your client. You have to know how that asset is going to earn returns, because effectively you're investing in that particular asset. You're investing in that particular business. And that brings about a different aspect. So banking is all about service. And at the end of the day, it's a nice thing to know that when you take banking, you take ethics, not to say other banking systems are not ethical, but when you sort of intertwine it to say that this must add value into the particular area, then you do get this better service orientated model, which is an appeal. Interestingly enough, from a foreign exchange perspective, over the period 2013 to possibly 2019, we saw a very gradual change in our customer demographic and our customer religious base, to the extent that over 50% of our clients that come to us for foreign exchange come to us from the non-Islamic faith. And we attribute that to the model itself. So, I mean, many people would probably wonder, how is Forex Sharia compliant and not Sharia compliant? But in the model that we approach foreign exchange on, the concept of commission in a foreign transaction is not allowed under Sharia law. When you're selling something, your price has to be transparent. And that's where we found it to be a very unique selling point. So when we launched with 0% commission. Although it was a good USP, it wasn't driven by our marketing people. It was driven by the fact that the ethics within the bank didn't allow that. And that's allowed customers to grow because they've seen that and said, we like the transparency in it. We like the ability to know that what the price we sing is the price we paid. So an all-in service.
Fascinating, really interesting. But with this growth, obviously came technological needs, and you needed to be able to support this in terms of reporting, in terms of compliance, in terms of making sure that that from a governmental and reporting perspective, you were fully covered. Tell us what the challenges were, and then of course we know that this is where Synthesis and the bank and Baraka Bank cross paths. But take us through that journey and the challenges there.
So our journey with Synthesis started back in 2013 as well. When we looked at, and I spoke about banking being service orientated, banks are also very much technology institutions. As much as many of us have legacy systems, etc., banks do spend a lot on IT and infrastructure. And in 2013, we looked at Synthesis. I think at that point in time, the offering wasn't commercialized, and hence we went with a outsourced but custom built solution. So it was bespoke for Al Baraka Bank in order to meet the exchange control regulations and requirements. And when we looked at updating our core banking system, we then went through a similar discussion again with the vendor and said either build something bespoke. And at that point in time, we took it upon inquiring with Synthesis. And I think we realized that as regulatory environments are not static, they evolve every day. It's not something that you want to spend your core time on building and customizing a regulatory environment. The partnership with Synthesis, and as a bank, our tagline is your partner bank. We know that we can provide certain services to our clients. And like that, we have certain skills. And the skill set that Synthesis brought in terms of ensuring that workflows were originated, processes were smarter and made more streamlined, gave us the thought or re-emphasized the thought that we should be partnering with regards to this aspect of compliance. And also the fact that as the regulatory environment evolves, that evolution is being met by a partner who understands it and has got that on their roadmap as well.
Yeah, so Synthesis was called in, obviously, and has been on this journey with you since as you said, since 2013. Give us some of the challenges along the way. Tell us about some of the problems that needed to be solved as you went through this journey.
So just to a small correction there, the 2013 to 2019 was without Synthesis. That was internal.
That was without Synthesis, right?
Yeah. And 2019 to 2020 was the journey on Synthesis, and obviously we went live in 1st of February 2020. So prior to Synthesis, the 2013 to 2019 aspect. A lot of what we saw in there was the complications when items changed. Regulators, as I indicated, would need to respond to market risk. And when they respond to market risk, they obviously then require additional changes. And the obviously to be able to implement that into our systems, the ability to then test that and ensure compliance across all the various areas was quite difficult. And that's been one of the primary factors of the decision to go with Synthesis, being able to continue doing what we do, which is provide customer service and provide solutions to clients, and to be able to ensure that the regulatory aspect is strictly followed, but the burden of maintaining the compliance to that in terms of technology-wise is outsourced to a partner that specializes in that.
And one, of course, that needs to fully appreciate the differences in the style within the bank or within the client. And I think that's a critical aspect, because without understanding the uniqueness of Al Baraka Bank and the uniqueness of the approach to usury and to the clients and to the whole business model, this could very, very easily have fallen very flat, actually, because you can't have a system, a one system fits all imposed on a bank that actually isn't a one size fits all bank.
Correct. And you know, Howard, you asked about challenges and just talking about project challenges. Obviously, being a Sharia compliant bank, when we chose to modernize our core banking system, we chose to go with a partner and a vendor that was founded in providing banking solutions that were aligned to Sharia compliancy. And so we chose Path Solutions because they do only Sharia compliant banking solutions. But the challenge that we then found ourselves was that they very much Middle Eastern based, and exchange control doesn't sort of fit into the Middle Eastern context.
Because it's something that's fairly unique. I mean, although many countries, of course, have reporting and exchange control, South Africa's has got its own nuance around this.
Yeah, so I think obviously being able to then gel the South African nuances and the international systems, and that was a mammoth challenge. I mean, understanding the concepts about what exchange control required and being able to share that with the technical team on the other side that were just per se looking at a payment or a foreign bill or an LC and saying, but hang on, this is what this transaction is all about. What are you asking me about a movement reference number? What are you asking me about these additional fields? And it would be a miss for us not to recognize the level of skills that Synthesis brought to that discussion, the level of determination, the partnership model that came through. And I'm not sure if you are aware of this, but shortly after our go live date, we had a challenge on our core system, and it related to the system date configuration, etc. And it all came back down to the way that the system was communicating a date for the Synthesis transaction, and the team came across, the Synthesis team came across, and were able to make a much needed change at a very pressured time in the system. You know, go live and rollback period. That's when everything is pressurized. Yeah. That pressure cooker is at its maximum, and the team came across. They assisted us, and we were able to navigate our way through that. So those were the challenges. Those were the war stories that when you sit down and you look back 8 months ago and you say, we got through that. We did it, and we did it well.
And hopefully what you've got now is a system that is robust enough for the bank to continue its growth and to continue offering these types of services across the board, and to be able to manage the growth as it comes your way.
Yeah, so for sure. And I think we've already seen that coming through from the team. From an operational perspective, we're running a centralized model, and the team are coming back and giving definitely favorable reviews in terms of the workflows, improving efficiency, and providing the scalability that we require to be able to leverage it for other products that we want to offer, other markets that we want to tap in within the foreign exchange and exchange control areas.
Absolutely amazing. Mohammed Kaka is the Chief Operating Officer at Baraka Bank. It's been an absolute pleasure, fascinating to speak to you, and I really do appreciate you taking the time to speak to us on the Synthesis podcast. I wish you and the bank, of course, all the success, well-deserved success on the journey. And I have no doubt that we're going to be having many more of these conversations. I'm Howard Feldman. This has been the Synthesis podcast, chatting to Mohammed Kaka, who is the Chief Operating Officer at Baraka Bank.